Hello, everyone. I am Professor Leons, and today I'm going to be discussing with you 5 ways that the deaf and hearing cultures are different. Now, we almost live in a hearing environment, so when two cultures come together or when they collide, you usually have some challenges, and the best way to work on those challenges would be to get to know about each other's culture a little bit better. So today we're going to talk about the 5 ways deaf and hearing cultures are different. So I want you to just take note of the first fact that historically speaking, deaf people are very diverse. Their culture is filled with tradition. They've experienced many social struggles together. They've experienced a way of life that is different to the hearing world, to us in the hearing world. So, the first thing that I want to highlight would be that deaf people can be very direct. I know sometimes it seems as a hearing person that deaf people come off a little bit rude or impolite, but that is just something that is innately theirs, which is they are very direct. They express their thoughts without a filter, and they are very good at putting across their feelings and their thoughts and emotions. Now, we would tend to feel a little uh, taken back or set back by this kind of direct approach. Not many people or many cultures are direct when it comes to expressing themselves. We tend to take the long road, but deaf people are very direct. They're very straight in their communication. Now, the second thing that I want to say is that deaf people use an expressive medium of communication with each other. So while we as hearing people tend to, we would look around and we would stand still and just talk, deaf people's bodies and their facial expressions are an integral part of their communicating with each other. Also of note is that deaf people, through their gestures and through their uh, different elements of communication, they tend to express more, get more out there. And it is, if you try to stop them, it's like the equivalent of telling someone that's hearing to stop talking. They are very into giving you their thoughts and their feedback, but in a very expressive way. We sometimes are content maybe just to argue, just sitting and just arguing, but with facial expression and body language, that is a part of the culture of deafness. So that is another area where sometimes we tend to be different culturally. The third thing is that there's a great amount of eye contact within the deaf community. As hearing people, we tend to look all around, or we would have a conversation and we'd be backing each other. We would be in another room and we'd be shouting. But deaf people place great significance with eye contact. I know here in my country, in Barbados, we try to tell children to look in your eyes, to look in our eyes when they're speaking. But we as adults find it difficult to look in each other's eyes. It's very difficult. Sometimes it feels like we're being a bit invasive or someone's invading our privacy or invading our little space. But eye contact within the deaf community is critical. They look for cues and clues about what is not only being said here, but what is being said here. But eye contact, once you make that eye contact, it is important. So if you break that eye contact in any form or fashion, it's like you're done a conversation or you're moving on to something else. Or, for example, if I'm speaking with one of uh, my deaf friends and we are signing and we're looking into each other's eyes and hear something I hear something to my right and I do this, obviously they look that way and sometimes they're confused as why I'm so easily distracted. But I guess because we are so used to sound that we are very quick to respond to sound as opposed to sight. So that's a really big difference where they place great emphasis on eye contact. Now, the fourth point is something that I've experienced in my travels. I have traveled to the Czech Republic, Austria, and Poland, and I've seen deaf people in all those territories. And one thing I can say about deaf people is that they have a connection regardless of where they're from. Borders don't separate them. So even though the signed languages may be different, there is a connection that they have. There is a connection that they feel with each other. And it's amazing sometimes to see how quickly they understand each other and how effective their communication is, even though they don't speak the same sign language. But they have the ability to communicate easily. We as hearing people don't always make that connection to other hearing people, or English speakers don't necessarily make that connection to other English speakers or whatever spoken language. But deaf people seem to come together quicker and with an understanding of each other, even though they don't speak the same sign language. And the final point that I want to make is, I think, probably the biggest one. This is deafness as an identity for deaf people. I know that many of us in the past, maybe some of you as well, have had a problem with the word deaf. And I've seen it, I've heard it. Many people seem to have a problem with the word deaf. But here's the thing, deaf people don't have a problem with the word deaf. We have gotten rid of things like hearing impaired and this whole stance of pitying a deaf person because it's like, well, they can't hear. I'm so sorry, you can't hear. But that's actually offensive to members of the deaf community. Deafness is a symbol of pride, and identity is everything for for them. So when you see a deaf person and they're signing and they're being expressive, everything that we said in the top four, in the first four that I mentioned, whether it's eye contact or whether they're interacting with other deaf people from other territories, or whether they're being very expressive or whether they're being very direct, all of that is a part of who they are and a part of their identity. So it is very important that we remember that deaf people love being deaf and they love the word deaf. And we don't need, as hearing people, to shy away from saying deaf. Deafness, as I said, is what defines them as a person. And so being deaf is not an imperfection and it's not a disability, but deafness is seen as a symbol of pride and something that should be embraced. So, what we need to understand is though we have two cultures that sometimes collide because culture, regardless of what culture you're from, cultures collide, and all it takes is for us to understand each other. All it takes for us is to take a step back, just take a step back and try to understand and figure out each other where we can learn to accept and embrace our differences and celebrate our differences when we come together because it's one thing to be focused on your culture, but when you look and you see another culture and you are willing to accept and embrace it, it is then that not only do you as a person or as a culture uh, welcome another culture into your space and you go into their space, but there's an understanding and a cohesiveness that we can all move together with common goals. So I hope that as we continue our ASL to English translation course this semester, that you would enjoy not only all the videos and the readings and the articles that we will share. I'm hoping you enjoy your assignments as well, myself and Professor Apple. So I'm hoping that you find purpose within this and that all that we have planned for you, that you would be able to put it together so that it would help you to become the best interpreter that you can be. And when we do this, we will all be able to succeed together. So until next time, bye everybody.